Welcome back to another. Whoa, that kind of sounded like my stomach. No, wait, that kind of sounds like another handsome review with your handsome host, Jamiel Surita. His Halloween special. Warning, warning, warning. Sorry about that. That's the robot part of me. Just letting you know that this will be a full spoiler review. So if you haven't watched it, please click off the video, watch the movie. It is currently streaming on HBO Max. And then when you're done watching, come back to the video. Give this video a like, subscribe, and write in the comment section below what you thought of the movie. All right, let's get into the review. So I just want to say that the movie off the bat feels like it's two stories being told in one. Specifically in the moment when Tess runs into Keith and then the monster pops up and bashes Keith's head in. So that really told you kind of like the ending of part one. And then the next scene is literally Justin Long's character, AJ, singing along while the screen is super bright because it's back to daylight again. And so, I kind of like that. It kind of like put a stamp so you know exactly when the end of part one ends and then continues the second part. The first part was very suspenseful. The whole time I felt like yelling at the character, Tess, don't go into the basement. Don't do that. Stop, no. And, I know some people complain about the cliches of horror and stuff like that, but I kind of enjoy it. I feel like it's all kind of like a roller coaster. It's all part of the ride. So I do really enjoy that. And she did a great job kind of leading the story in both parts. And she continues to be the main character throughout the whole movie. So she's kind of like what brings the two stories together. She's the glue. And let me see. So when we saw her in the second part of the movie, that was after we were introduced to the character AJ, who turns out is a pretty horrible person because he's being accused for sexual harassment. And basically his whole career, I believe as an actor, is coming to an end. He's out of money and he decides to go back to the same place where the movie started, the Airbnb in Detroit. And so that's kind of like the setup already, and throughout the movie, he's a horrible character. Damn. And I know that the antagonist is supposed to be the creature mother. I think it's kind of known as. The character is known as Mother. But in reality, she's a victim as well of abuse, sexual abuse, of incest, which is crazy when they introduce the character of the old man. And he kind of creeped me out. And then he barely had anything to do with it. But basically, he was kind of there to inform the actions of the characters and how they end up all being trapped in that situation. So, although the character AJ, for the most part, is trying to survive, he kind of becomes the antagonist when he goes against Tess, literally the whole time to kind of survive. And so, that I feel like a lot of the movie is about like the Me Too movement, more specifically about the relationship between women and men and how women really have to move in a world with men. You know what I mean? Like they have to be careful. They can't do this. They can't do that. And like, that's why when, for example, one of the scenes that was like really crazy was when she fell asleep and then she woke up to a sound and then she sees the door open. And like, I'm sure that if a situation like that ever happens with a woman where they share a place with a man that they've never met and then they see the door open and they're sleeping, must be scary as hell. Because there's a lot of bad people who are trying to abuse women and men. And so that stuff, especially for women, is always on their mind. So I thought that was a really strong moment. And then he also creeped me out when he was like moving in his sleep and stuff. And then he wakes up. So, the movie, I want to say also, is part of like what happens with a lot of horror movies over the time of the history of movies. I feel like a lot of times horror is kind of used to represent these bigger ideas, kind of like a gummy vitamin, like it tastes good, but it's trying to do something, and the same thing happens with some of these big horror movies. Specifically when they have women as like a main character, I feel like a lot of times these huge monsters and stuff kind of represent what happens with, what happens with women in the world where they're being attacked for just existing. So, it's definitely a tough situation. And I think that's kind of like where the director was kind of going towards when he was making the different stories that kind of connect with only the character Tess. Especially, I thought was really unique. Although I think it has been done in horror before, the idea where there's like a secondary character who's trying to go after the protagonist. And then there's still a monster on the side. I think they've done that in like the Texas Chainsaw movies as well to kind of create a more relatable feel to these horror movies. Because, monsters, they're not really real, but people doing bad stuff are. And so I think that's part of why they did that when they introduced the character of AJ, who is also like this person who's being accused of sexual harassment. So you can kind of tell like where the thinking kind of went into when it came to like this type of story. So I did really enjoy that. You know, I really hated the character AJ. Keith turned out to be a decent person, but then the monster was introduced, and then the monster felt kind of like it was going towards like a Frankenstein's monster, because in the Frankenstein movie, the original as well, he was lynched for just being a monster. He didn't do anything, and then the real bad ones were the mob, were the people. And I think that's kind of something that I've noticed recently when I'm watching these horror movies now. As an adult, you're kind of seeing that the monsters, as much as they're deformed, as much as they're part of this genre, it's really not the biggest part. The biggest part will always be the people behind it, the people with bad intentions, the people who are hurting others, or even the people who are just hurting the monster, who may just be a misunderstood person with disease, a person who just may be different, and they're being bullied, you know? So I really did like that. And then to have that kind of feel, especially combining with this idea kind of like about what women go through abuse and through all this different stuff that really does happen in real life, I thought makes sense, especially considering that some of the most famous characters in horror are women. And I think that's part of the reason why. So it's kind of like they're taking the story full circle. And so in terms of like the psychology, in terms of the philosophy, even in terms of the scares, they were pretty good. Even using the tropes and everything, they created a story that felt very familiar with the genre, but also different. Just because of the fact that I didn't expect that jarring part 1, then part 2 to happen like that, where really you see the difference in just the time. And even like the lighting and everything went from really dark because she was in the basement about to get killed, to Justin Long's AJ character having a fun time driving in the blue sky. You know, so I really did enjoy that combination and that stuff. And even though the story does have like a lot of disturbing ideas and everything, I think that a lot of times in order for a story to hit, it has to be more dramatic in order for people to really see the attributes of what they're trying to say highlighted. Because when something's highlighted, you can really see how ridiculous, how sad, how crazy, how stupid, how annoying something is, you know? And that's part of the way cinema works. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening to this new video, for watching this new video, this new Halloween edition review. I mean, it's not that different, but I did try to put a little bit of work into my intro. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know what you thought of the movie in the comment section below, and I will be seeing you pretty soon, specifically in November. And also, before I go, I want to say thank you to my new subscribers. We are now 85 subscribers strong. Thank you for everything, guys. And I will see you very, very soon.